The Movies of the Meek, where we watch made-for-TV movies and miniseries so you don't have to. From Gia to Xenon, Hysteria to Sybil, welcome to Movies of the Meek.
So Splash 2 picks up like right after, or I guess not right after, but 4 years after Splash 1.
Yeah.
And we find Alan and Madison living on this deserted island for 4 years, I guess. And they decide to go back to New York City to rescue Alan's family business. And Madison has to act like a human, and it's real funny because she's not. She's a mermaid. It is Mermaid Month, after all. And yeah, there's a crazy mad scientist who's trying to do crazy research.
Yeah.
A ton of fun stuff in this movie.
So, off the bat, obviously, it opens with that great storybook opening.
Oh, I love it.
Which is always great. I love it when they do that.
Oh, it was adorable.
And I love how it just kind of caught you up on the most minimal things that happened in the last movie.
Yeah.
And then, so here's a question off the bat.
Okay, I'm
Is
ready.
that her home?
What do you mean?
The island.
Okay, so did you watch Splash 1?
Of course I did.
Okay, I did not. I meant to, but I didn't. And then I was trying to catch up. I read a lot and I watched a lot of YouTube videos. But
Did you watch my video, which is an in-depth analysis of Splash 1?
No, I did not. At the end of Splash 1, I read that they go to the Mermaid Kingdom.
Yes.
So that would be her home, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so why are they on an island?
Exactly. It makes no sense. And
Like, this movie doesn't make any sense because from what I read, again, I didn't see Splash 1, she says that once Alan agrees to go with her into the ocean, there's no going back.
yeah.
But that is not true because they go back 5 minutes into this movie.
Yes. Like that's the thing is at the end of Splash 1 is them going into the water and they're swimming off to who knows where. It's a place that we could only imagine in our dreams. And so then you see the beginning of Splash 2 and they're just on an island and you're like, oh, did they give up on her wonderful home or is this her home?
What was going on?
Is she the one mermaid that's a liar?
It doesn't start with them on the island, right? It starts with that underwater montage, like where she's chasing. I'm assuming that's Salty, the dolphin,
That
or some dolphin.
some dolphin.
You would assume it would be Salty, because he plays a big part in this movie.
Also, if you got rid of the beginning book sequence and just cut straight to that, you would think that this movie is about a mermaid in love with a dolphin.
Yeah. Yes, you would.
And when I watch these movies, what I'm really looking for is just a bunch of shots of water and fish, and I just love to see the ocean floor and all the critters that inhabit it. And 2 minutes in, this movie was delivering. That's what you want from a mermaid.
But there was
movie.
but there was no context for why she was there.
Oh yeah.
And then cuts to the island, and it almost implied that it was like a flashback. That's what I think it is. I think it's a flashback to her and Salty in love, I think.
Oh.
I don't know. I think that was just to establish that she is a mermaid and that she has relationships with dolphins.
No, that kind of makes sense if that was a flashback, and
But they're like,
that.
but why put it at the beginning of the movie? Because we understand she's a mermaid from when she, like that scene where she's on the island with Alan. She's a mermaid. We don't need her swimming. I don't know. It was really weird.
The thing that I was thinking with that is that the reason that they juxtapose between her in the water having a great time and then you see Alan on the shore being bored.
Just on a rock.
And that's... So, I feel like this isn't the last time that we're going to talk about mermaid biology. But it is one of those things where this movie got me thinking a lot, so the whole reason that people don't like mermaid movies and also one of the problems that people have a lot with Splash is this concept of like the manic pixie dream girl, and so it's like this crazy, like, otherworldly, outlandish woman that's like so different from everything else and like comes into the life of like this business type guy and shows him the way that he's always meant to be, which is like a man with a woman. But Splash is an interesting one just because of the fact that it's like he's drawn to her 100% just because of the fact that she's beautiful. Like, she literally can't fucking talk for like a solid 10 minutes of the movie.
She can barely talk in this movie.
and so obviously, that's kind of fucked up, and she eventually learns English, or at least a minimal understanding of English enough to communicate with him and get some points across, but it's still, once again, this really fucked up personification of a woman and this really fucked up ideal that they basically have set up, which then is hammered even more home just by the fact that it's like, it's once again this the idea is that she is basically a creature, a literal creature, and the man has to tame her. And that's basically what Splash 1 is like, It's instead of just
her the whole movie,
instead of just like, and that's the same thing with like kind of any mermaid movie, and that's part of the desire of it is the idea of like you have this feral creature, and she's sexual and she's wild, and you are the one that is bringing her to humanity. It's the Pocahontas story, as fucked as that is, and so it's.
Or like Little Mermaid.
But it's the same narrative as the Disney movie Pocahontas 2. It's the idea of bringing the supposedly savage people to the mainland, and seeing how wild and wacky and crazy it is, and John Smith being like, "I love you, baby."
That's why Splash 2 is so fucking weird, because like they already did that in Splash 1, and she still have, like, you know what I mean? Like, she already has experienced life on land.
And so this is why I'm bringing this up.
Okay.
Do you think that going beyond just the archetype, that biologically mermaids are mentally closer to fish than people?
It sure seemed like it in this movie.
Yeah.
Like she had a connection with that dolphin, Max. Like her and Salty should have been together, not her and Alan. I mean, the whole movie, he's just like, he like consistently refers, like, he's like, you have to act more human. Like, you're not even human in my eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he says shit like that, even though that she is, she grows legs when she's on land. So for all intents and purposes, she's a human while she's on land, except her mental capabilities are a little lacking.
Yeah.
They're like English language and stuff, but she's a human pretty much when she's on land. When she's on water, she grows her fin. So to answer your question, I think yeah. She's more common with a dolphin than she does a human.
Yeah,
which would make sense. I mean, she's from the ocean.
And I mean that's just an even more interesting type of fucked up.
Yeah. All these mermaid movies are fucked up.
But she at least can understand, that he's sad. And she's like, "Well, what's making you sad, baby?" And he's just like, "I don't know. I just miss my family and my friends. I've been on this fucking island doing nothing for 4 years."
And then she's like, "Guess what? I just realized I had a superpower that I didn't know about. I can create a portal and I put my hand in water." I love that too. She's like, "Let me show you something," and then they go over to that little stream, and then she starts like she makes the portal in the water, and she's like, I used to be able to do this, but then when you brought me on land in the last movie, I couldn't, and now all of a sudden I can because it serves the plot.
Yeah, and also when we go back there, I still have this power.
Yeah, like it's a main, like she uses it multiple times in this movie.
And she does it not even for like a really big deal. Like she's just like, I just miss him. I'm just gonna check him out. Talk to him.
Could she do this in the last movie?
No.
Or did she not? Okay, that's why she had to say that line.
No one can do this in any movie. This like isn't a thing anywhere.
Yeah.
Like the closest,
like Game of Thrones, I think they do it.
The closest thing that I can think of is in the movie Jason and the Argonauts, when the gods are up in Mount Olympus and they're looking down on Jason as he's on his voyage, and they have a pool of water that Aphrodite can look through. That's the closest thing I can think of. It's insane.
What was that? Oh, Toothless. She had the TV.
The TV, yeah.
But that
but I'm
made
talking
more
about
sense.
Controlling water.
Okay,
Turn it into a spy camera.
Yeah. Not only can they spy, she can like talk through the portal.
Yeah.
And it gets transmitted to the person's head. Like the person will hear it inside his own head.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
crazy.
So the one time that this happens, he's on a construction site, okay?
Oh, I love that part.
And when it happens, he doesn't quite hear it.
Yeah, but I think that was the sound was distracting him. Like he couldn't
focus on it.
He couldn't focus on it, but they portrayed it like he couldn't hear it, but that wouldn't make sense because it's coming from inside his own brain.
Yeah.
And I love how they even like back that up with science too, kinda, because they have that whole side plot with the biologist, and he's trying to figure out the lobe in a dolphin's brain where they can communicate.
Yeah, the dolphin telepathic membrane.
That whole plan is so crazy.
We're gonna cut out the part of its brain and put it in a human brain because they can connect directly somehow, and we understand how. So
his ultimate goal for doing that whole procedure, for his whole research was based on this transplanting of a dolphin's lobe into a human's brain.
Yeah.
So the person, I think he was talking about himself, could then control dolphins.
Yeah.
And the end goal is to make the dolphins not eat the tuna, so tuna companies are happy?
No.
Okay.
So what it is he wants to be able to control dolphins so that dolphins could be the ones that shepherd tuna into nets, because too many dolphins end up getting hurt in these tuna nets, and we end up accidentally eating dolphin, which is still a problem.
So he's trying to save the dolphins.
So he's trying to save dolphins by being the mastermind that controls them.
See, I thought he was working for Big Tuna, and he was trying to use the dolphins and tell them not to eat tuna. Holy shit, I was way off. But anyway, so it's kind of like a noble thing he's doing.
Sure.
Kinda. He's saving dolphins, but he's taking over their brains.
He also does turn into a James Bond villain by the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So he ends up seeing his brother through this lovely portal that his wife has made. We never see the wedding ceremony. I'd love to know what that was like.
It was called the Neptune ceremony or something. It's so fucking stupid. Whatever.
So they see not John Candy. And
dude, this whole movie's been recast, by the way. I think for one person. I read it online. There was one person that stayed.
And not John Candy is just going, man, I'm so nervous about this business meeting that's gonna happen. I just don't know what to do. And Alan is like, man, I really wish that I could help him. And, I wish that I hadn't given up on that life. And Madison is just like, oh, no, you didn't give up on that life. We could just go there. And he's like, what have we been doing the past 4 years? And she's like, eh. And so he's like, can we leave right now? And she's like, oh, yeah, definitely. We can leave right now. And so they go back to New York City to save not John Candy and Alan's father's business. And yeah, so that's where, like you were saying, she can just turn her legs back into legs anytime she wants. And there's also this thing that she says. Okay. She says, okay, so now I have to soak my legs in salt water at the full moon. And as long as we're together, everything will be fine. Now, the full moon thing never comes into play.
No, because she's in the pool. So oh God. So her brother, Alan's brother, buys them this shitty rundown house that they have to fix up.
Yeah. Which Alan does say a great line, which is, what could be more American than a young couple in debt with their first fixer-upper?
Yeah. There's a lot of witty lines like that.
Oh my God, movie. There's so many fucking witty puns.
Was Splash 1 like that?
No.
Oh, okay. I feel like regardless, Tom Hanks would deliver those lines better. But yeah, so there's a pool at the new house, and they turn it into a saltwater pool.
Yeah.
But she's like she's in there a couple times in the movie during the day, like whenever.
Yeah.
Like, which I feel like that only serves the purpose of the nosy neighbor of that whole side plot. Yeah. And it was like, that got old after the fifth time. But
that got old just like the jokes about saltwater got old. So many fucking saltwater jokes.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But yeah, she has the power to, I guess it's just based on moisture. Like if water touches her legs, as we saw at that hilarious restaurant scene.
Oh man. That old lady thought he was eating pussy under that table, and it was hilarious.
It was pretty good. That and the walrus joke were my favorites. But yeah, she just turns into a fucking mermaid if she gets wet. Like a fucking, I don't know. She's like a goddamn gremlin or something.
And that was the thing, is that they're adding this new thing with the full moon, and I was like, okay, so you're trying to make like a werewolf parallel, or you're trying to give it like a time frame. But when she says like, as long as I soak in salt water on the full moon, I was like, all right, so when is the full moon?
But like, what happens if she doesn't? Does she die? Does she turn into a human? Like, what is?
Yeah, they don't establish anything.
And I don't understand when in the first movie, the end of the first movie, they say that they can't return. Like, why can't they return to land? Was Alan the one like stuck in the water? Was he transforming into a merman? Did that happen in the first movie?
I mean, that wasn't something that was obviously happening, but I assumed that she was going to grant him the ability to become a merman.
See, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
If he was the one that had to deal with being a merman living on land.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I have a grasp on the mermaid biology in this movie. It seems to change every movie.
Now, so like you said, Alan's brother bought this house. It's a real fixer-upper. And so there's, of course, the reason that they even have this house is because they sold Alan's apartment. And now this guy that they're working with, Mr. Moneybags, he really loves family, just like everyone and Dom from Fast and the Furious, and really just wants to see a good, solid family unit. And that's when, Alan's brother's like, well, Alan is like the ultimate family man, just got married, family. You should go see his lovely house out in the suburbs. And he's like, I'd love to have dinner with your family in the suburbs. And so they get to the house. It's, of course, a piece of trash. I legitimately laughed when he stepped his foot through the floorboards.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
That was actually really funny. And so it's just them. There's a wonderful montage of them fixing up this house, and then that's when we end up getting to, so the husband kind of sends his wife to like spy on Madison, and so she goes to the house, and they end up getting invited to this charity ball, and yeah, that's Madison says the line, she's like, I will be the most human. And that's when I was just like, all right, there's something wrong with her brain. She's not the person. And they get to the charity ball, and she's just not behaving in a way Alan wants her to, and so he just keeps pushing her off to the side, and he's like, girl, you can't hang, just sit by this tank and stare at this dolphin. And she's like, okay.
You would think after 4 years of them being together that she would learn some human mannerisms.
Oh yeah.
But she hasn't. I mean, she literally is like she has like a 5-year-old like mental capacity. It's kind of insane. But yeah, this is where she meets Salty the dolphin, or reunites with Salty the dolphin, I should say.
I like to say reunites. Same. Yeah.
They are lovers.
And so she reunites with her lover, Salty the dolphin. And the marine biologist sees her communicating with the dolphin. And he's like, I was right. They can communicate telepathically or something, maybe. Yeah. And he was like, hey, pretty lady, how about you come on over here and talk to me for a little bit? Let's go on up to the roof, you dense girl. And she's like, oh, okay. And then Alan shows up and he's like, hey, woman, that's a prop. I need you to come with me because we're about to eat dinner. And so they do. And that, of course, all goes mediocrely. They all go home, and then skip to, once again, another sequence of a woman learning how to be a proper wife and mother from television.
Yep.
And so she changes her hair, and she's wearing like this floral dress, and rich lady wife comes in, and she's like, what are you doing? Where are you? And she goes, oh, I'm just in the kitchen where I belong.
Oh my God.
And that's when, so the rich guy's wife becomes like an endearing character because she tells Madison that she can be any kind of woman that she wants to be,
Yeah.
She's like, you don't have to be a stay-at-home wife. Like, look at me.
Yeah, you can have your own goals.
Yeah.
And that leads Madison to concoct a plan to rescue Salty, the dolphin.
Yes.
Which made sense because we established that they know each other, and he is currently in captivity. Yeah. I have a quick question, though. When the biologist pulls Madison aside, does he know that she's a mermaid? Like,
no.
Why does he immediately assume that she can communicate with Salty? I mean, they were just playing through the glass.
He's like, I've never seen such powers.
Or do you think that he was like, she's the perfect person to put a dolphin brain into?
I think he was just like,
she's a babe,
attracted to her, the same way that Tom Hanks was.
Okay, sick.
Yeah, and that's why he was doing the cliche. Let me take you up to the roof and show you the stars, baby. And she was just like, okay, strange guy that I've never met before. So she, of course, wants to save Salty. And then that ends up getting slightly sidetracked by the fact that she has to go out to dinner with Alan. And when they go out to dinner, that's the eating pussy scene. And some splash of water gets on her legs, and they turn into a fin. And that made me wonder, when that happens, why don't they just dry off the one area that water splashed onto? Like, how is it that the entire fin turns super wet?
I don't know. I don't know what was happening. And also, I thought it was salt water that she needed.
Yeah.
And this was a fresh cup of tap water.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, like, she gets like a couple drops spilled on her legs, and then she turns into a mermaid, and her whole fin is just wet. And she's flapping around like a fish. It's funny.
So this old lady,
I didn't understand why she was in the movie, except for like comedic relief or something. Like,
quote unquote comedic relief.
But like the nosy neighbor thing, where she's like going over and she's snooping around, and she's just almost catching her turn into a mermaid every single time, but something happens and she falls and she doesn't see it.
Yeah, and it just seems like, like she's a neighborhood watch kind of person, and it just seems like she's stuck up and just wants her neighborhood to stay the same.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you can't kick a person out of a neighborhood when you're not the one that sold them the house. They're not renting the house.
And also, like, for being the head of the homeowners association, like, the previous owners of that house destroyed it. And she makes a comment like, well, we're not going to let you guys do what the last tenants did. But, I mean, that looked like a crack house, Max. I mean, it was destroyed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and if that's your foundation and you do something good with it, like, who cares if you do some weird, freaky stuff?
And she wasn't doing weird stuff. She was swimming during the day. That's not weird.
But she might have been a fish or had a fish in there.
True.
Yeah, she was real concerned about that.
So fucking well.
She was like, honey, there's a whale in there. And then the husband's just like,
shut up, woman. I like at the end... when I think this is after Alan and Madison make up, and they're like making out in the pool, and she thinks Alan's murdering her, and her husband's like, "Shut up."
No, I enjoyed. So they go to the posh country club, and Madison, of course, is having difficulties understanding humans and how humans just lie to each other constantly. Because the guy goes, if you ever need anything, darling, just let me know. And she's like, oh, you should let that dolphin go. And Alan is like, bitch, you don't do that kind of thing. He was just being polite. And she's like, I don't understand humans. Like, what is this polite? And when that happens, so they get into this argument and it just starts escalating. And she's like, now, what about just like when we were at the island? He was like, yeah, I fucking hated it. I was being polite too. And then she does a reiteration of the same thing that happened in Splash 1, which is when she screams. She screams this name, and it breaks a bunch of glass. In the original Splash 1, it was her saying her actual name, and she broke a bunch of television sets.
Is it in Dolphin? Is she speaking Dolphin, or is that Mermaid?
It's speaking Mermaid.
It's what sounds just like Dolphin, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they get along. And then... and then they end up...
she ends up leaving.
Well, yeah, at which they have this really heavy-handed conversation where, he's talking about the things that, the sacrifices that you make for another person. And she goes, if we lose a part of ourselves, we'll be alone, even if we are together.
Yeah.
And then she goes, maybe I'll never fit in here. And he goes, maybe.
Probably not.
And then she jumps into the water. And I was like, that's the most amazingly abrupt way to end that.
Yeah.
And so Madison goes off to wherever, and we spend some time alone with Alan, because Alan's just, trying to fix this business and save it, and he's, just trying to be a good guy and do whatever. And that's when I noticed Alan has a waterbed.
Really?
And I was like, what? Why?
What the fuck? Maybe they've been sleeping in the ocean for 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. You would think she would just sleep in the pool.
Stupid Masson goes.
She goes to search for Salty's.
She finds Salty's wife. Because Salty, of course, is super sad that he never got to say goodbye to his wife. And then she finds Salty's wife and finds out she's a child. And so she just...
So how long was Salty in captivity?
I have no idea.
I mean, it had only been a couple months.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And so she's like, it is imperative that I rescue this dolphin. And Rich Lady is like, my husband ain't gonna help you, but like, I'm gonna help you. And then they for some reason, I guess like the rich lady helped her get inside,
yes,
but didn't help her because she goes alone inside of there to talk to Salty. And then the scientist goes to basically, he sees Madison and he's like, get her the fuck out of here, and gets the security, and he's like, yeah, get this dumb bitch out of here. How'd you get in here? Get out of here. And there's this weird cut to commercial where the scientist falls into the water, and then it cuts to commercial, and then it cuts back in, and it is just It's just great. It's a great movie. And then, one of the things that happens is, not John Candy ends up going to Alan. And at this point, like, Alan is unsure what to do just because he's trying to save this business. But, like, his wife is recklessly, going after this dolphin. And not John Candy goes, Alan, this business is a business. It is what it is. But you got 1 in a million.
No, 1 in a billion, Max.
Even whatever number he does say.
No, he says 1 in a million, and then he stops himself and says, no, 1 in a billion.
And so he's like, damn it, not John Candy. You're right. I should go and help her. And so he goes and he finds her.
He doesn't find her. He goes back home, and then she just happens to be there. He doesn't do anything.
He's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. And then he has a serious heart-to-heart talk with her, and he's like, I haven't always been there for you. And that's when she says, you're only human. Oh,
true.
Ties it all together.
Yeah, it does.
It's quality writing right there.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they come to the conclusion, they gotta go and steal that dolphin. All right? And so it's all of them together. It's not John Candy.
Yeah.
It's Alan.
Yeah.
It's Madison, rich lady wife. They're all gonna do it. And when Alan and not John Candy sneak into the aquarium, there is a motif that plays, which is
it's Mission Impossible. But then the rest of the song sounds nothing like that song. It's just like weird, like synthy ambient sounds. But yeah, it's fucking amazing.
When John Candy and Alan get get through security, there's this great walrus joke that happens, which I think was only the only reason that not John Candy had a mustache was just so that they could do a dumb fucking walrus joke.
Yeah.
And this is where the movie gets fucking batshit crazy. Because the marine biologist has now decided that he's just going to cut into this dolphin's brain.
Yeah.
And put the part, God knows where, into him.
Yeah. I don't know how that was going to work either.
Okay. Yeah. Because he still doesn't really know where, or how much of the brain or anything, really, it seems like. He did notice when Madison was telepathically communicating with the dolphin, he did notice that the dolphin could communicate, but it's not like they were doing like MRI scans to see what part of the brain was being activated the most.
He mentioned he was putting some kind of electrodes on the dolphin's brain. I don't know if that was in play. Maybe he was reading the dolphin's brain waves. I don't know, Max. That whole like plot didn't make any sense. Again, I had his whole angle. I had it completely wrong. So,
and so this is where he turns into a James Bond villain. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he gets like this gun that's kind of like a dart gun, but he just like tapes a syringe to the end.
I thought it was a harpoon gun, but it was more like a dart gun, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he just like taped a syringe to the end of it. And at the very end, like Madison miraculously gets the dolphin and she's lowering it like down to not John Candy and Alan, and she turns around and he's literally a Bond villain, and he goes, "Perhaps we shall retire you from the dolphin rescue business permanently." And then he points the harpoon or dart gun, whatever, at her, and that's when his assistant is just like, "Fuck you, man," and pushes him into the water.
Yeah.
And so that brings up my huge problem that I have with this entire movie. Okay. Why didn't they just let the rich guy know his scientist was going to kill the dolphin in an experiment that wasn't what his funding was based on? Because you can tell the assistant that he'll keep his job because, fun fact, he wants to keep his job, and he even says that when he pushes the guy in the water. She's like, "If there's ever anything I can do," he's like, "If you fucking hear about a job, let me know, because I am about to get fired." So obviously he would be totally down with turning on this guy if you just tell him that he'll get to keep his job, and he'll rat on him, and then boom, Salty is saved.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is when at the business party, the business partner asks Madison if she needs anything to let him know, and that's when she says, "Well, can you like save Salty? Like you own Salty. Can you let him go?" And he's like, "Oh, you're not one of those animal lovers, are you?" Implying that he's like he has no sympathy for animals.
Yeah, but I'm saying that you go about it from the standpoint of this experiment that he's doing. His belief in dolphin telepathy has nothing to do with what his actual funding is.
Yeah, I understand where you're going. I'm just saying that maybe I don't know. This is the issue with the movie you had, Max. not the fact that the movie shouldn't exist because of rules set up in the previous movie. Okay.
That first opening sequence of her swimming in the water whisked me away.
You got lost in this universe.
And I got lost in this universe. And so, yeah, I was just like drifting along through and everything was fine. And then that problem came up. So, yeah. Now, they get salty.
They get salty.
And they start going around in this stupid truck.
There's a chase.
And it's really late at night. There's a chase.
Yeah.
There's the cliche power cable falls on the road and the cop cars can't cross it. And that's when Not John Candy gets lost.
Yeah.
And we introduce another new mermaid power that doesn't exist, which is Madison. Can you sense where the ocean is? And she's like, I can. It's that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they find the ocean thanks to Madison's ocean sense.
Unbelievable.
And they put Salty back in the water. And yeah, that's when they're deciding whether or not they're gonna go back to the island. Not John Candy is like, I love you, and I'm gonna miss you again. And and it's just like this weird thing because Madison is just like, oh yeah, like we don't have to go back to that island. It is what it is. And he's like, it's gonna be tough to live here. And she's like, yeah, but at least we'll be together. And he's like, yeah, we will be. It'll be fine. And then they look upon the rising sun. And if you notice, Not John Candy is like putting his hand like on the rich lady's ass.
Oh, really?
And I was like, they're not a couple. Okay.
The first movie implied that he was kind of a sleazeball, right?
Oh yeah, and he even says in this movie he's like Psh, married me? I marry people all the time. I'm on marriage number 6, you know. Ugh, boy. That's when you end up seeing Salty reunited with his wife, and then another dolphin comes up, and she's like, oh, it had the baby in like 2 seconds. And then that's when Tom Hanks turns to Madison, and he goes, how do mermaids have babies? And she goes, you'll see.
Oh, Jesus.
Which, all right, so that raises a huge question.
I think we were talking about this for the last podcast episode.
We were, but this is a confusing one.
Okay.
Because the reason that I'm bringing this up is because of how her power works. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Her fin leg power.
Her legs can turn into legs. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's not like Cody's mom in the 13th year. She's not
stuck as a mermaid.
She's not stuck as a mermaid. Because if you're stuck as a mermaid, I feel like it would be eggs. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this movie opens up the possibility for human like birth.
Yes.
I mean, that would be their whole society is probably built around that. They would get. I don't know how they get pregnant, if they have to be human form to get pregnant, and then they go in the... It's really confusing. But they would have their babies on land. like turtles, right?
But so in the 13th year, I would postulate that Cody would be born in an egg, okay? And he would be born with a little fishy tail, okay?
Dude, oh my god, I just want like a new like a piece of fan art of the 13th year with Cody in an egg.
Because
how sick would that be?
Because that is what makes sense, okay? Now, in this movie, and this is why I'm bringing this up,
Okay.
she can have regular legs, okay?
Yes. When they're dry.
When they're dry, okay?
Mm-hmm. Following you.
Insert wet vagina joke here, okay?
Oh boy.
Now, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That means potentially not only could her child be born with regular legs, okay? But she could potentially give birth with legs. So instead of having eggs, she could have a regular human birth.
Yes. Now, would the baby have the fin out of the womb? Because they would be in the fluids of the womb, so they would have their fin.
And so that was my question: is would the fluids of the womb?
We're on the same page here.
Coming out of the body also cause her tail to transform like halfway through.
Oh boy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
and that's when she's like, "You'll see." It's like, will he? Because it sounds like a nightmare. It's like every way that I'm thinking about this seems terrifying.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. That's kind of gross too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even.
Also, since they're like fish, shouldn't she potentially like same thing with like Cody? Like Cody should have been like one of like 30 children.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is that how?
You know.
But if she's still like dolphins or mammals, and they just give birth to like one. I mean, they can have a couple children like humans can, but
yeah.
Maybe she gives birth like to a fully formed baby, baby.
Okay.
I don't know. I hope is there a movie that delves into this? I feel like we need to watch a movie that really gets into the mermaid birthing process.
Not that I know of.
I'm sure there's a book about it. But that's how the movie ends. It's kind of a reversal of the ending of the last movie. They stay in New York, and she gets to be a housewife.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
Yeah,
she says she still has things to do. So, Max,
yeah.
I think I found a goof on my own.
Okay.
I think there's a second, or there might be three of them, like underwater montage scenes. I think after she leaves, they like break up or they separate, and she dives into the water.
Okay.
We see her swimming around the ocean floor, just like the beginning of the movie. And I don't know if this was just the lighting or the very shitty YouTube upload I watched, but it looked like she had red hair. And I looked into it, and the actress that plays Madison has red hair naturally, but wore a blonde wig the whole movie.
Oh,
so I'm thinking that in that scene, they couldn't get the wig to stay on her head.
That's amazing.
And they also, I read that the prosthetic that she wore was like 50 pounds.
Yeah.
So like she was like sinking to the bottom of whatever pool they were shooting in, and like she had a huge wig on. Like,
yeah.
I think they just shot it in a way so you wouldn't notice or care, but it looked like her natural red hair. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm sure.
Yeah, you killed it with that one.
I'm sure there are other goofs, but who knows?
No, there's only one, and it isn't that.
Okay, what's the other
and
goof?
Are you ready? Because it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm ready.
At the end of the original splash, Madison tells Alan that once he jumps in the water with her, he can never go back to his old life, which presumably would include living out of the water. But in this movie, not only are they living out of the water on an island, but they make a trip to New York.
Yeah. It makes no sense. That's like the laziest fucking thing. It's like the fans of the first movie that's the first thing they would think of watching this movie.
Yeah.
You would think they would do a little extra work on the script and just write in something to where he's a merman and they do some ritual and he has to transform back into a human. It's not that fucking hard.
Now,
whatever.
Bringing back the mermaid tail. She was originally offered to wear the mermaid tail costume worn and used by Daryl Hannah from the first movie, but she couldn't fit into it. And after undergoing a body cast, a new form-fitted mermaid tail was made just for her. Nice. It took 3 people to zip up the tail and lift her into the water.
Oh my god.
And then this one actually isn't on here, but this is something that I noticed. So our arch nemesis of the film is Dr. Otto Benes, okay, who is played by my boy Mark Blankfield, who played Blinken in Robin Hood Men in Tights. And I automatically recognized him, and I was shameful of that. But then I was going, that can't be the only thing you know him from. It is indeed the only thing that I know him from. But he also starred in another made-for-TV movie, which was a sequel to The Jerk, which is also titled The Jerk TOO.
I feel like more movies should do that. It's really clever.
The Jerk also.
Yeah.
Well, next week we are going to watch the movie She Creature.
Oh boy.